who told reporters after their defeat to Everton on Sunday that the club must consider spending in the January transfer window. Well, let's remind you of what he had to say.
After 5 months or the first half of the season, we need to check, and that is the reality. If we are not aggressive enough, maybe we need to, to do something, some movement. That is a thing to analyze with the sporting director, with the owner, and see what we can do to change this dynamic and to improve in the second part of the season.
So Mauricio Pochettino saying Chelsea need to sign more players. Really, Dan? Really, do Chelsea need to spend more money?
It's just a case of when is enough now, isn't it? The last three or four windows, we've been focused a lot on Chelsea. I'm kind of at the point now where with Chelsea that I think they kind of just need to leave things as they are, let it marinate a bit. There's been such an upheaval of players coming in over these last few transfer windows, and we're at the point now where players they signed in a transfer window 12 months ago might not be Pochettino players, and he's talking about bringing in kind of his own players and players that are more in his mould. And I just think they've got a really, really big player. I know you're going to talk about the injuries, but a big player to come back in Nkunku, a player who's got the pedigree and he's proven at the highest level in terms of the Champions League. He had a good record in Europe last season. I felt like, for me, he was the most exciting of Chelsea's summer signings and the kind of player that you could build a team around, and him and Jackson had a nice little link-up in pre-season as well. I think if you're throwing another forward player into the mix, then I think it just becomes more chaos. And I think, like I said, let it marinate. Let Nkunku come back from injury. Let him come in and link up with Jackson. Just give players a little bit of time, because I just think if you're throwing more and more players at it...
Into the marinade.
Into the pan. I don't know why it turned into a cooking show this morning.
Sprinkle of this, sprinkle of that.
Just leave it as it is, Chelsea. It's too much. Surely you as a Chelsea fan think it's too much now? Probably not.
To be fair, I think we'll go into it in a bit later, but I think there's more to it than just seeing the signings. Like when you look at what he's asking for, you mentioned, having some of the players that he didn't necessarily sign, and obviously that happens with a lot of teams, but I think he's at a point now where he's been able to look at the team, look at the players that he wants in, look at the players that aren't available right now, and he wants to see, if there's anything that can be done in January. He didn't say that he's going to sign another 10 players.
Yeah.
He just said we might need to do something to add experience, to add the quality that he thinks he needs to, get up the table.
Dave, if they were to spend money in January, what positions would you say need strengthening? Would you add into the Chelsea marinade?
I haven't got anything left on the cooking, and let them cook. Let Chelsea cook. Sam mentioned experience there, but I think the forward or a striker is probably the position that they'll be looking at come January. We talked about it in the summer, though. Nicholas Jackson, when you're buying a player in that bracket, they're not going to be able to come in and be a 35 goal a season striker. When they were buying in that tier below, it was going to be so hard for him to come in. Chelsea fans, Chelsea supporters, they knew that Jackson wasn't the finished article just yet. And if you are going to go and buy an experienced striker, what have you got to spend? You've got to spend 80, 90, 100 million pounds if you're going to go out and get a Victor Osimhen. And then the question arises, well, is he going to want to come to Chelsea when they're in this kind of malaise once again? It's, we're getting on
the
towards
big
a year.
names aren't going to want to play at Chelsea right now.
Well,
look at Ivan Toney, for example. Does he want to go to Chelsea?
Ivan Toney's going to be one that we talk about in the January transfer window. I think simply because that there would be a price that Brentford would be willing to do a deal at. But if you're Ivan Toney, if you're Victor Osimhen, are you going to want to go to Chelsea if there's no guarantee of European football next year? And when you get to the end of the season, if you are in the Champions League, that opens up a different market. If you're in the Europa League, it's a different market. But if Chelsea are finishing mid-table again, it's going to be difficult to attract that top level of player.
There's two things that really strike me with Chelsea. One is that, they spend £85 million on Mudryk, which is a hell of a lot of money. And you're saying, well, he's not the finished article, he's not ready yet. You're spending £85 million on a footballer, I think you should be ready. And how many windows now can they have to build this side? And I'm saying enough is enough, because we're still talking about that they need a striker. How can you spend that much money, as much money as they've spent, and still need a striker? I was crunching some numbers earlier and I was looking at their attacking players. There's 142 Premier League goals between their attacking players, and 120 of them are Raheem Sterling. So it shows that they've spent all that money. They haven't actually got proven Premier League goal scorers, not got the finished article. And I just find that mad.
Right, Sam, you've been taking a look at why Chelsea may need to strengthen their squad in January. So what have you got for us? Show us,
In
Sam.
terms of the injuries, and I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons Pochettino wants to, make signings in January. Because when you look at the list that is going to appear in a few seconds, which is here, you can look at the experience that is on the list. You talk about Ben Chilwell, he's obviously vice captain that went out quite early in the season as well. Romeo Lavia was a summer signing that excited a lot of Chelsea fans, excited the manager as well. Fofana's out for a long time with a long-term injury. But like Dan mentioned, Christopher Nkunku, who, you could see during pre-season was a player that, Pochettino wanted to have his team revolve around. He was a player that you could tell meant so much to the team, not just because of the quality, but because of the experience as well. And then when you look at the person that came in to replace him, Carney Chukwuemeka, who started the season really well, he then gets injured. So it's quite difficult. There's other names on here as well, the experienced Reece James, Robert Sanchez, Mark Cucurella, who recently got injured. But we're talking about a captain. We're talking about players, the most experienced goalkeeper. We're talking about experienced left back as well. So you can understand why he wants to add some players to the team. Maybe not in all of these positions, but it's definitely going to be difficult for them to, lose all of these players and not think to, invest in January. When you look at what they did in the summer, you can also see the type of players that came in. Caicedo, obviously £150 million. You saw the tug of war with Liverpool. Lavia, another one of those players. Christopher Nkunku, like I mentioned as well. And it's been difficult for Poch because some of these players, yes, you could say that they're going to be added to what he wants to do for the team, but some of the players are not experienced. And, Nicholas Jackson, Ugochukwu, Washington don't have that much Premier League experience. So I think now he's probably going to have to look at players that he could maybe lose in January, maybe on loan or permanently, and seeing what players he can bring in. And some of these players I've thought of, and I think that these are the players that he could potentially, say goodbye to in January, because they were linked with moves away in the summer. Trevor Chalobah was linked with Bayern Munich, was linked with a few teams in Italy as well. Ian Matson as well. He hasn't really been able to find his feet in the team. Noni Madueke, yes, he's got a contract till 2030, but at the same time, when you look at the minutes that he's played for Chelsea, yes, he's been injured a few times and he's been struggling to find his feet at the club. But when he plays for the England under-21s, he scores goals, he gets assists, and he might be one of those players that might be looking at the manager and saying, if I can't get minutes here, then can I get minutes elsewhere? It might not be a permanent deal, but a loan deal, especially. And Pochettino might be looking at these and saying, if we can get some, a good fee for some of these players, then maybe we can bring in the players that, can add the quality and the experience to the Chelsea side. But what do you guys think? Do you think that those players are the only players that could potentially leave in January, or is there anyone else?
The likes of Armando Broya, Conor Gallagher.
Hello, who do you think Chelsea should sell this January window to fund the striker? Because to get Vitor Osimhen now, it will be very, very difficult because already accept a deal from Napoli to 2026 with the release clause of 112 million or 120 million euro. If Chelsea must sign, Chelsea need to trigger that clause, which is very difficult because it's very expensive. Do you think Chelsea should go for Vitor Osimhen or go for Everton? Feel free to leave your opinion in the comment section below. And Chelsea need to sell, for me, Chelsea need to sell Maxim, who refused to extend his deal, and Gallagher, because we have a lot of midfielder. If Romeo Lavia come back, he can play the same place with where Gallagher play. Even Chukwuemeka can play there. So we have a lot of players to play the same place. Even Nkunku can play the 10, and then Enzo will drop back and play double midfield with Caicedo. So we need to sell some player to fund the striker in January, which is, I think, when Chelsea sell Marcin, Gallagher, and Chalobah, those money were enough to fund the striker. And which of the striker do you think Chelsea should sign? Feel free to leave your opinion in the comment section below. Please subscribe to the channel. See you in my next video. Bye for now.